Hi, and welcome back to Hill and Pines VA Disability Blog. I'm Natalia Joffrey, our firm's manager.
And I'm attorney Rachel Cheek.
And as you know, last video we were talking about PTSD and C&P exams. And I would like to now talk about how PTSD can be rated, because I know you have some additional information for us on that.
Absolutely. So after you do your C&P exam, you attend that. That information is sent to the VA, and then you are rated based upon your symptoms in the C&P exam, as well as in your medical records and in your file, any statements that you might have provided, that sort of thing. So it's important to know that PTSD and essentially any other mental conditions, so that can be depression, anxiety, that sort of thing, anything that's mental, they're all rated under the same criteria.
Okay.
So you can have, a diagnosis of depression. Your friend can have a diagnosis of PTSD. That's going to be rated under the same criteria. They look at the same list of symptoms.
Okay.
So, and an example of some of these symptoms, well, first let me back up. Mental disorders can be rated. Once you're service connected, you can get a rating from 0% to 100%.
Okay.
In between, you have 30%, 50%, 70%, 100, of course.
Right.
So, and the way that the VA makes that determination as to which level you should be at is they look at your symptoms. So, for example, I skipped one, 10%. That's one where they say, okay, well, you have a diagnosis of PTSD, but your symptoms are controlled with medication.
The VA loves 10%, don't they?
Love it.
They love to give people 10%, no matter how bad their situation is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Your symptoms only come out when you're stressed, and or it's controlled by medication. 10%.
Right.
Well, that's not. Sometimes that's the appropriate rating, but more often than not, it's the conditions are more severe.
Yeah.
So for the purposes of this video, I kind of want to focus on the major, the more significant ratings. So for example, 70%. That's something where not only are you having very common symptoms such as flashbacks and nightmares and sleep impairment, that's common at many levels of PTSD, but these are where you're getting into symptoms that are really, really impacting your everyday life and making it hard for you to deal with anything. Some examples, it's hard to function. Exactly. Yeah. So some examples of criteria that's in the 70% category are inability to form and maintain relationships. So I speak to a lot of clients who feel that even within their own families, they can't really connect, or maybe, they're close to their spouses or children, maybe, and that's it. There's no friends. People at work, they're not able to deal with. They're just not able to form a connection. They tend to stay away from people.
Right.
Or they push people away sometimes. Another very common one is suicidal ideation. And that does not have to be, it doesn't have to be any action taken on that. It can be something as fleeting as, well, I feel like things would just be better if I wasn't here. It'd be easier on my family if I was gone.
Right.
Although that's not what we necessarily think of as being suicidal, there's not an active effort. The thoughts are there, and that's ideation.
And I do think that people get confused or misconstrue that term often because they think, well, I'm not thinking every day about killing myself, or I hear often, but I don't have a plan. Like people are they're very quick to say, oh, but I don't have a plan. And so they think, well, this must not really apply to suicidal ideation. But like you're saying, if it's something as simple as where you have this recurring thought that things would be better if I just weren't here, or my family would be better off if I just weren't here, that is a form of suicidal ideation.
Ideation, it's an idea, it's in your head.
Yeah.
They call that passive suicidal ideation. It still counts.
Right.
Another example of one of the symptoms that's found within the 70% criteria is impaired impulse control. And that's generally something where you also have outbursts of anger. Okay. So, and that's common in, again, a lot of mental conditions, PTSD, of course, but even anxiety and depression, even though
the rationale is there.
Yes.
It's almost like they lose that moment where this is no longer reasonable.
Exactly.
Isn't that where like a lot of road rage incidents happen and people always talk about, and it's like this disconnect all of a sudden where this person cut me off and now it's just become a full on battle. And
exactly. You can't control your impulses.
Yes.
Normally, if you were maybe thinking straight and you weren't having to deal with the condition, you could set it aside. But with this condition kind of affecting you so strongly, you're not able to control your impulses. And road rage is a great example. I also see a lot of times in medical records, sometimes it'll be noted, well, you know, this veteran gets very irritated with their children, any kind of noises, any kind of little things can set somebody off. Whereas normally, again, if you weren't having to struggle with this condition, you didn't have to deal with that, you would be able to, set things aside. With the condition, you do have your impulses, you cannot control them as much. And that can have to do with violent outbursts, shouting, anything like that. That's another example.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, this was all really informative. Thank you, Rachel.
Of course.
We're going to keep talking about all of this and a whole lot more. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please visit our website or call our office.
Thank you.